Hey everyone, this is going to be a bit of a different story than you may find online these days about previews for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I was recently at Walt Disney World and I did not get to ride Disney's first ever attraction based on The Princess and the Frog. However, I did have an encounter with a real life frog, and let's just say that blue skies and sunshine were not guaranteed. So, this is my story, and it begins with a stay at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, which is my favorite of all the Disney resort hotels. And my goal on this day was to snag a pass holder preview slot for Tiana's. And as you have to do these days, I'm up before 7 a.m., nervously refreshing my phone and full of adrenaline, waiting for the virtual queue to open. I also need to check in for my flight at 7 a.m., so I had a lot I'm juggling this morning, but that's why I'm thrilled when I managed to snag a spot in the virtual queue with boarding group 55. And since the former Splash Mountain had a higher capacity than, say, Guardians of the Galaxy or Rise of the Resistance, I'm thinking Group 55 could be called pretty quickly. So I decided to head over to the Magic Kingdom. I am a Disney Resort guest, so I can take advantage of early entry and see how things are going to work this morning with previews for Tiana's. But this is when I hit my first hurdle of this day. Wilderness Lodge, as you may know, offers both bus and boat transportation to the Magic Kingdom, which is great, but it can be a bit of a gamble on which one will get you there first. On this morning, I chose unwisely and went for the boat, which was too full when I got to the dock. And by the time the next one came and I finally reached the Magic Kingdom, there's only 10 minutes left in early entry. While figuring out what to do, I did note some filming was taking place on the hub grass in front of the castle. Whether it was related to Tiana's or not, I couldn't tell. I'm hoping it was, though, since we still haven't seen many commercial spots for the ride despite it opening in a few weeks. But back to my plans. I still have a few minutes left in early entry, and so I decide to go ahead and take advantage of the perk, enter Fantasyland, and then try to rope drop Frontierland from the bridge into Liberty Square, and then hopefully hop on Big Thunder Mountain since it's a big topic of news recently. And I'll then be next door to Tiana's to see how the whole setup is going on this morning. But that is where I hit hurdle number 2. At the entrance to Frontierland, cast members are preventing us from entering as all of Frontierland is reportedly down and having technical issues. So, another early entry fail. But then, within seconds, myself and others began to see that guests are entering Frontierland through Adventureland. And then suddenly, cast members say it's open, we're allowed to go in. We rush over only to find that both Big Thunder and Tiana's are still closed after all and having technical issues. In fact, the logs weren't even running on Tiana's, suggesting it's going to be a while before AP previews can even begin. So, with early entry, rope drop, and a shot at a morning slot for Tiana's now officially blown, I realize there's only one other rope drop I can make, and that is Disney Springs. After grabbing a coffee, which makes everything better, and doing some Disney Springs shopping, I was able to rope drop Gideon's and with only a 5-minute wait. So the day was looking up. Also, Tiana's Bayou Adventure opened while I was at Disney Springs and began accepting boarding groups, which was my cue to head back to Wilderness Lodge, drop off my cookies and purchases, and then head back over to Magic. And this is when my Princess and the Frog day turned into an all too personal meet and greet with a real life frog. When back in my room, I opened my sliding glass door to grab a swimsuit I left out to dry from the day before, and soon discovered I had a stowaway. A considerably large frog, about the size of my hand, is now inside my fourth floor resort room between the glass door and the bed. And before I could reopen the glass door and try to find a way to get it out, it took off and went behind one of the nightstands, which, by the way, is chained to the wall. After moving a chair to try to corral it back towards the door, it took off again and wedged itself behind one of the legs of the bed. So, at this point, the only option I can think of is to call the front desk because I simply cannot leave a frog in my room. And I'm told they will call pest control and have someone come up as soon as possible to get it. The good news and bad news at this point is Tiana's is down again, so I don't have to worry about missing my boarding group being called, but the chances I'm going to get to ride are becoming slimmer and slimmer. So at this point, I just have to wait, and I wait, and I wait for roughly an hour when I decide to call back down again, only to be informed that the request they put in for pest control to come help me was closed out around the time that I called. I'm guessing there's a request system in the resort's computer for these issues. I'm not really sure, this was not explained to me. Maybe they didn't believe me. I don't really know, but I let them know I haven't left the room. The frog is still here. I'm looking at it, actually. And so they put in a second request. But, of course, since it didn't work the first time, I'm not that confident it'll work the second. But because I'm embarrassed and I want to be polite, I decide to wait and see. I'm also thinking the front desk will surely call back up to my room and follow up with me this time, but that didn't happen, nor did the appearance from pest control. After about 45 minutes, I decide to head down to the front desk in person and explain what's been happening. I also show them pictures as proof, and I let them know that I'm going to have to leave soon at some point, but I can't not knowing something will be done, and because simply there is a frog loose in my room. And the person I spoke to was incredibly understanding and apologetic. They tracked down who I assume was a resort manager. I'm not entirely sure about that. He never introduced himself to me, but he did produce the pest control guy who had just shown up and informed me that the pest control individual will be heading to my room and I could leave if I wanted to. Since Tiana's is still down at this point, and I have wasted much of the day waiting for it and dealing with this frog, in a panic, I decide to head to Epcot to salvage the day and to check out the new Communicore Hall. But once I arrived, Tiana's came back up, boarding groups are moving rapidly, and then the skies opened up and it began to pour and storm. And according to the weather forecast, this was only going to continue. My concern is I had been at Magic Kingdom the previous day, and I knew how long the lines are to ride once your group is called. Some even extended over the bridge, completely exposed to the elements. And my concern is, with it thundering, will the ride shut down again, and I would just have been soaked and miserable for nothing. In the end, I just surrendered. I returned to Wilderness Lodge to make sure the frog had been removed, which thankfully it had been. However, still no one from the front desk had called or followed up. But sometime later, my boarding group was called for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. But since the rain and thunder had closed down the Wilderness Lodge pool, I opted to stay put since it was getting late in the evening, and it was likely that if a pool was closed, that Tiana's Bayou Adventure would close down as well. So, my experience with Disney's Princess and the Frog attraction did involve a frog and getting soaked, but not actually aboard the ride itself. And while my experience is definitely unique, delays with Tiana's Bayou Adventure are not, and that continues to be a problem. I understand that previews are rehearsals, but this is not a new ride system, and it's not good show or a positive guest experience, and personally feels less like a perk or reward and more like annual pass holders, DVC owners, and cast members are kind of serving like guinea pigs and risking their days off or vacation time for a chance to ride without having to fork over cash for a lightning lane on June 28th. At least that's my own personal perspective. I honestly wish at this point the opening date had been pushed back to better test the ride and work out the kinks before offering previews. And again, while no one should expect a frog to make itself at home on their 4th floor deluxe resort room, I do wish that cast members had followed up with me. It seems like they rely on a computer system to deal with issues, but there are now issues with that system. And it's just not personal or anything like the welcome home they tell you when you arrive. So if I can give any advice, if you get a boarding group for Tiana's, don't get your hopes up entirely and don't completely rearrange your day because it's simply not guaranteed. And if you happen to have a strange issue with an animal or amphibian in your room, don't just call, go down to the front desk, see someone face to face. Anyway, that is my story. I do hope your experience with Tiana's Bayou Adventure is more successful and that your resort stay is amphibian free. And if you happen to enjoy Disney park news and analysis or vlogs about travel experiences, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm a travel and entertainment reporter with a particular passion for the Disney parks, and I love sharing the latest news and developments and a little dose of the magic as well. Regardless, thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have a magical day.